Hello students, today we'll have the explanation of the chapter Should Wizard Hit Mommy, and we'll have the line by line explanation from page number 48 to page number 50. Now let's begin this chapter, my dear students, and when we begin with this, there's a question given over here in before you read. It's written over here. Here is a story about the worldview of a little child, how she sees the world, and the difficult moral questions she raises before her own father. And it all happens during a story session when she listens the story from her own father. Now let's have the first part of the explanation of the chapter that we'll have from page number 48 till page number 50. Now, my dear student, this chapter begins with something like this in the evenings, and for Saturday naps, or which is called a short sleep, like today's one, Jack told his daughter Joe. The name of the daughter was Joe, and the name of the father was Jack. Story out, and Jack told his daughter Joe a story out of his head. Now, Jack was in the habit of telling different stories out of his head. He used to make his own stories, which were basically made from the main character was one particular character named Roger, and there were different creatures that were actually involved over there in this particular story. Whatever he used to make every time, there was a one particular creature, but the name of the character basically was Roger. Now let's move ahead, my dear students. It's given over here. So Jack told his daughter Joe a story out of his head. He made a story. Told a story out of his head means he made a story right at the spot. So at the spur of the moment, just at that particular moment, whenever he was told to make a story, so Jack was in the habit of making stories. Now this was actually a custom that had actually begun when she was just 2 years old. When she was just 2 years old, when Joe was nearly just 2 years old, was itself now nearly 2 years old, and his head felt empty now. Why empty? Why did Jack felt empty? Because he was now not in a habit. Earlier, he was not in a habit of making stories, and whatever he knew, the stories he knew. So he used to just tell those stories to her daughter Joe. Now what happened, and when all those stories just got finished and she knew all those stories, so obviously, and this girl was a little brainy girl. She used to remember the different stories, whatever were told by Jack, and she also remembered the characters that were in those stories. So she was also a sharp-minded girl also. So let's move ahead, my dear students. So each new stories now was whatever he later on Jack made was actually basically a slight variation of a basic tale. There was a slight variation, there was a slight difference, and it became a new story. And there was a creature, as I told you, there a small creature usually named Roger. He used to name the main character of the story as Roger, and there was a creature in it, and he used to attach the name of the creature with this particular character named Roger, and that how comes the name, like for example Roger Fish, Roger Squirrel, Roger Chipmunk. Now my dear students, you might not be knowing what is chipmunk, so let me tell you. Chipmunk looks somewhat as a squirrel, and it is a squirrel, but suddenly not found in India. Basically, it's so similar first of all, and it's not mostly seen. Chipmunk is a stripped ground squirrel basically, and they are small, and they are stripped rodents of the family Sciuridae, and they are found basically in North America. Exception is there is one kind of exception, that is Siberian chipmunk, which is normally primarily found in Asia, and so it's part in Asia. But this creature chipmunk is not found in India. Now let's move ahead, my dear students. So it's basically, in very short, it's a stripped ground squirrel. So let's move ahead now. So had some problem. This creature had some problem and went it to the wise old owl, and the owl told him to go to the wizard. And the owl, why did this particular creature actually went to the owl? Actually, why did he put this into the story? Why did Jack tell this into the story? Because owl generally has big eyes, and somewhat it shows ki in earlier part of the stories Jack might have told that this particular creature owl was of a was intelligent, and that is why this creature Roger went Roger Chipmunk went to the wise old owl. So in this way we come to know this not chipmunk, my dear students. We'll come to know of a different creature, one more creature, Roger Skunk. So the name of the creature is Skunk, and when we are talking of the particular character over here, it would be Roger Skunk. So this particular Roger Skunk actually had some problem, and he went to the wise old owl, and the owl told him to go to the wizard. It's better to go to the wizard, to go to the magician, and the wizard performed a magic spell that solved the problem. So magic spell, we all know, are some kind of magical words which bring into some changes. We all know that. And in this, in the opposite, this particular wizard actually demanded in payment a number of pennies or number of coins, what he had wanted, or a bit of currency, a small currency for himself. Now, greater than the number of Roger's creatures had actually. So the Roger creature or the Roger skunk had actually less amount of pennies or coins with him, and but in the same breath directing the animal to a place where the extra pennies could be found or the extra coins could be found. So when this particular wizard actually came to know that this Roger creature did not have that particular thing with him, he did not have, the Roger creature did not have, Roger skunk did not have that amount of money what he had asked for. So he directed this creature to a particular place to go over there to take the money, to have the extra pennies, to have those extra coins, what you require to pay me, and come back and pay me. So in this way could be found. Then Roger was so happy, and then later on he played many games with other creatures and went home to his mother just in time to hear the train whistle, and brought his daddy home from Boston. Boston is the name of a city of Massachusetts state of United States of America, my dear students. This just has been placed over here. It's a made story. It's a tale. It's a story, and it's not a real one. So we come to know that this particular creature's father, his daddy, actually came from Boston. After working in it, he came over there. Now, Jack described the supper, my dear students, is actually the evening meal or late night meal, which is typically a light one. Now, working his way through this particular scheme, this particular way of specially fatigue going, it was a lot tiring for Jack actually, especially on Saturdays, as we all know that Saturday is a weekend holiday in many of the countries, and the next day obviously is Sunday. So children generally sleep late, or they don't try to sleep early. So especially fatiguing, it was a lot tiring for Jack to tell the stories out of his head, especially because the girl Joe didn't want to sleep early. And in doing so, because Joe never fell asleep in naps anymore, in those short sleeps anymore, she didn't used to sleep anymore for a longer period of time, just because it was Saturday nap. Now, just because it was Saturday short sleep. Now, the little girl, not so little anymore, not so young anymore, she bumped her feet made under the covers. Bumps means she hit her foot, the feet under the covers. Covers means, my dear students, bed sheet, and she was just padding, just beating her feet on the bed, my dear students, and were now halfway down. So she was just trying to persuade her father to have a new story out of her head, and the bed and the big double bed that they had laid her in before naps for sleeps, and when she was sick actually had at last arranged herself, and from the way her fat face deep in the pillow shone in the sunlight, sifting through the drawn shades. Now she was, it's all in very short. Now the girl Jo was sleeping in the bed, and the light was sifting, not shifting, my dear students. It's sifting. Sifting means sieving or passing through the drawn shades. Shades is actually a window cover, which you see the window panes are either over there, or it could be another thing. It's called a blinds also, or it's called window covers also, and shades also. It's also called as window shades. So that less light could penetrate inside the room, and the girl could easily sleep. That is why it was done so. Now, it did not seem fantastic that some magic would actually occur. She would take her nap, she would take her sleep actually, and like an infant of 2. We all know that infants generally sleep a very less time, and they get up again very fast. So she also slept a very short sleep. Now, there was a brother of Joe also, Jack and Claire. The Claire is the wife of Jack, and both the husband Jack and Claire had 2 children, and one was Joe, who was elder. The younger one was Bobby, who was 2 years old, and already asleep with his bottle. And Jack asked, "Who shall the story be about today?" So we come to know that the question is asked by the daughter Jo over here. Who shall be the new character be? Who will be the new creature be? Now, in such a situation, and the father is asking this question, and now the daughter Jo, actually what does she do? She speaks Roger, and there are 3 dots given over there, and she starts thinking, what should be the new character be? What should be the new creature be, on which the father would be telling her the story? And she just squeezed her eyes, she compressed her eyes. In Hindi we call it as aankh bheech lena. So she just squeezed her eyes shut and smiled to be thinking, and she just smiled and thought, and she was thinking, and later her eyes opened, and before her was her mother's blue eyes, and then she remembered a creature. The name what got out of her head, out of the daughter's head, was a creature called Skunk. Now, my dear students, Skunk, she said so. Now, she said firmly. Now, my dear students, this is actually a black, white-striped, skunk is actually a black, white-striped, bushy-tailed American animal which emits powerful bad smell. So very deep bad smell emits out of this particular creature. Skunk is basically found in America. Now, and she said this firmly, and this was a new animal, and certainly father hadn't told about this creature in any of the older stories, and this was a new creature. And the father also thought, how did this particular creature actually come into the mind of the daughter? So a new animal, they must have talked about skunks at nursery school. That was the thing the father Jack thought in his mind. Having a fresh hero momentarily, briefly stirred up, so he just motivated his own and propelled his mind. Jack propelled his mind to creative enthusiasm, with creative zeal, to create a new story. And all right, he said, once upon a time, and from now he starts making the story and just starts telling the story to her own daughter. Now, right, he said, once upon a time, in the deep dark woods. So in the dark woods, woods means over here, forest over here. So in the deep dark forest, there was a tiny little creature by the name of Roger Skunk, and he smelled very bad. Now, the name was very lovely, Roger Skunk, and then later on he said that this particular creature smelled very bad. And when Joe heard so, and Joe said, yes, this creature, yes, smells very bad. And Jack says he smells so bad that none of the other little woodland creatures would play with him. Woodland means forest creatures would actually play with Roger Skunk. Nobody, no other creature of the woodland or forest would actually like to play with Roger Skunk. Now Joe looked at the father's face, Jack's face, solemnly, sadly, and she hadn't foreseen this, she hadn't anticipated this, she hadn't expected this kind of story, and with this kind of beginning in the story, this was something which she did not like actually, and she didn't like it, she didn't expected this. Whenever he would go out to play, now the father moved the story ahead, goes on with the story ahead. So whenever he would go out to play, Jack continued with zest, with enthusiasm. He just moved ahead and with energy, and he started bringing the story ahead in a particular direction, remembering certain humiliations, certain embarrassments which he himself had felt in his own life, which Jack himself had felt in his own life. So remembering certain humiliations or embarrassments of his own childhood, Roger Stinky Skunk. So stinky means unpleasant smell. So people maybe used to call at some point of time Jack in during his childhood. He would be stinky kind of a boy. He wouldn't have been living properly at that point of time in his childhood. And we come to know over here, he puts the same thing over here, and we come to know ahead that nobody, no woodland creature, no forest creature would play with this particular creature, Roger Skunk. So, my dear students, and he had put the same humiliation of his own childhood into this particular creature in the story. Now, all of the other little animals would cry, oh, here comes Roger Stinky Skunk. So, people, whoever the other creatures, woodland creatures were, they would actually make fun of this Roger Skunk actually, and they would just make fun of him, and they would say, oh, here comes Roger Stinky Skunk, or with unpleasant smell, and they would run away. When he used to come, when Roger Skunk used to come, the other woodland creatures would run away, the other forest creatures would not come together with Roger Skunk, and they would run away, and Roger Skunk would stand there all alone, and he would be left all alone, and no one would used to come to play with Roger Skunk. And two little round tears would fall from his eyes, and that made actually Roger Skunk much more in a situation which he did not like, and tears fell from Roger Skunk's eyes, and the same could be seen on the Joe's face also. As it's written ahead, the corners of Joe's mouth drooped down. So drooped down means hung down. The lower jaw of the mouth dropped down. It was opened. It means she disliked it actually. And her lower lip bent forward as he traced, or the father traced or found with a forefinger along the side of her nose, of her daughter's nose, that the course of one of the Roger Skunk's tears were actually there in the eyes of her daughter. Now Joe asks over here, won't he see the owl? Now, as I told earlier, there were creatures doing certain kind of things in the stories, in the past stories, and the girl used to remember it. So we come to know that owl was one of the creatures which the father must have told that the owl was really an intelligent creature, and that is why Job asks a question from over here. to her own father, won't he see the owl? Won't he go to the owl and have some better solution? So she asked in a high and faintly roughened voice, in a harsh voice. Roughened means in a harsh voice. Now, sitting on the bed beside her, Jack felt the covers. Jack felt that the bed sheet tugged as her legs switched tensely. Tug means pulled. She pulled her legs tensely and switched tensely. Switched means the legs just swapped each other and they were over each other, so interchanged, and they were tightly done so. And he was pleased with this kind of thing. Actually, at this moment, he was telling her something which was something very true, which something related to his own childhood, and that is why he was feeling it as lovely. Now, moving ahead, something which she must know and had no wish to hurry on, and he wanted to tell the story ahead. But downstairs, a chair scrapped. Now, downstairs in the house, the wife Claire of was working over there. So the wife was working over there, and the chair scrapped. Scrap, my dear students, means she shifted or shifted, which is shifting, which is done by dragging or pulling. So the chair scrapped, and he realized that he must go downstairs to help Claire and to help her actually as husband, and paint the living room woodwork, which she was doing at that point of time. Woodwork means, my dear students, furniture. Now, my dear students, let's move ahead. Well, he walked along very sadly and came to a big tree. In the tip top of the tree was an enormous, wise old owl. Now, Jack took the story ahead, and it began. So what happened? Roger Skunk went very sadly to a big tree, and there on the tip top of the tree, tip top means on the top of the tree, there was an enormous owl. The enormous owl means there was a big owl, huge, wise, big owl. And Joe says, now, father, it's good. Now, daddy, it's now good. It's lovely. Now, this creature, obviously, the owl would give some lovely, tell some proper thing, and and he would be done. Roger Skunk would have the best to do in this situation. Now, Jack takes the story ahead now. Jack says, Mr. Owl, Roger Skunk said, all other little animals run away from me because I smell so bad. Now, Roger Skunk accepts this before the owl over here in the story, that other little animals run away from him because he smells so bad. And the owl says, yes, so you do. Yes, a lot of bad smell is coming from your body, and yes, it's true. And the owl said, very, very bad. It's a very, very bad smell. What can I do? Roger Skunk said, and he cried very hard. Now, Roger Skunk started crying, and he said, what should I do in this matter? Now, Joe, the daughter, said, the wizard again. The same thing as I told earlier, the daughter knew the different characters told in the past stories. So she remembered there was a wizard in some story. He must have done some kind of magic spell over there in the story, and that is why she recalled the same thing. The wizard. She just connects the story over there. Now there is a need of the wizard to come over here in this particular situation and do his lovely work, some magical work that could actually take away the bad smell away from this creature. Now, what happens? So, because I smell so bad, so you do. The owl said, very, very bad, and what can I do? So and so. And Joe says, the wizard. Joe shouted and sat right up. When she was lying down, and now she just sat up, and little golden books fell from the bed. She had a book on the bed also, and that spelled from the bed, or that actually fell from the bed. Now, Jack says, he tries to scold her daughter. Now, Joe, daddy is telling the story. Do you want to tell daddy the story? Now we see here over here that the father is actually scolding the daughter. Joe over here, and Joe says, "No, you, me." No, you, me means, my dear students, now this word, these words are of Joe, and Joe says, "No, father, you tell me." "No, daddy, you tell me." It means this. Now Jack says, "Then lie down and be sleepy." Then just lie down. Father says, Jack says, "Lie down, Joe, and be sleepy." And daddy is telling you the story. And Jack says later on, moving here, the story says her head was relapsed onto the pillow. Her head was relaxed onto the pillow. And she said, "Out of your head, Papa. Now tell me what happened later on." So, well, the owl thought and thought. At last he said, "Why don't you go and see the wizard?" Now, just because the daughter had added the owl earlier, and now we see this particular the wizard over here. So the wizard's entry is over here. We see in this particular story. Now the daughter asked, and the father did so. And at last he said, "Why don't you go and see the wizard?" The old owl said so. So Joe says, "Daddy," and Jack says, "What?" And Joe says, "Are magic spells real? Papa, are magic spells, are these magical things real?" And this was something, a new phase, a new thing, something. And just this last month, a reality phase, a change which had come in her. And when he had told her that spiders eat bugs, and she turned to her mother and asked, and when she heard so that spiders actually eat bugs, so it was actually something, a creature eating a different creature. She was young, and she would have got terrified. So, and that is why. And do they really? Later on, she asked, "Do they really?" And when Claire told her, now it was a point of time when Claire was also available in the same room, and Jack was telling the story to the daughter, and Claire moved ahead, and Claire started making her own story. Now, my dear students, Claire did not actually, she was not in a condition and to tell the stories, and she was not in a habit of making stories, and she did not have that talent even to tell stories. And we come to know this thing over here. It's not given. Now this thing should have been given in the book in double quotes, but it's not over here. Now if you want to, you can put it over here in double quotes. Now it's written over here. Claire told her. Now after what's written after this should be written in double quotes. In the books it's not given, but it should have been written in double quotes. So it's written over here. God was in the sky. So according to Claire, now moving ahead, Claire started making the story ahead from where Jack had just stopped over there, and the mother Claire started making the story ahead, and she took the story ahead. God was in the sky and all around them. When God was in the sky, and he was surrounded by many around him, and later on she just stopped over there and she was unable to take the story ahead, and that is why she just turned to her own husband and the father and insisted her, and actually she just demanded forcefully that he should actually pursue and the story ahead, because she is unable to take the story, not more than that. And that is how. And so if you want to, you can just mark it from God was in the sky till all around them should be in double quotes. It's not given over here. This is a particular sentence, you can say, which was made as a part of the story by Claire, and but she was not able to move the story much ahead, and that is why she insisted her own husband to take the story ahead, and she actually refused that she cannot do so, and she cannot make the story ahead. With a slyly yet eager smile, slyly, my dear students, with a mischievous smile, said, "Is he really?" Joe says. Joe asks, "No, is he really?" Now Jack says, "They are real in stories, my dear daughter." "Yes, they are real in stories." "Now wizards are real in stories," Jack says curtly, and curtly, briefly. Now she had made him miss a beat in the narrative. She over here is kept for Claire, and she made him miss a beat. Beat is rhythm. the flow of the story was broken because mother started narrating her own story in between. So the whole magic of what the story was broken over here. Now the father took the story ahead from over here, and she had actually made him miss a beat, a rhythm in the story, in the narrative. Narrative means in the story. Now the owl said over here, go through the dark woods. Yes, you will have to go and meet the wizard, but the wizard lives at a very specific place, and I am going to tell you where this place is, where this wizard lives. So the owl tells, so go through the dark woods. For meeting this wizard, you will have to pass through the dark woods, dark dense forest you will have to pass through. Then you will have to go under the apple trees, then into the swamp. You will have to cross the swamp or the marshy area. In Hindi we call it as daldal also. And then you will have to go over the creek. Now creek, what is a creek? Now you ask, what is a creek? Now the answer, what is a creek, is actually revealed on the next page, and we will have that part of explanation from page number 51 in the next part of the video. I hope you must have understood this part of the video, and it would have been helpful to you. Thank you.